All right, so what we have on the table is everything we're going to need to make one prism. It'll be double wrapped prism that is 12 inches tall and it's equilateral triangle. So what we need, of course, is our materials. So here we actually have a separate pure CSA and sand. Now, if you were using cementol, these two would be mixed together, so you'd only have one bucket here. But basically, we have the pure CSA, the sand, and then the water, and these have all been pre-weighed. Now, that is going to get mixed in a bucket, so you have to have a mixing bucket. 5 gallons works for this volume. If you have to have a mixing device, you could do it by hand, but I highly recommend some sort of mechanical means. This is a simple cordless drill with a paddle mixer. These are available commercially if you want. Once we've made our mix up, we're going to want to rinse our paddle to make sure. So here's another bucket with some water in it to try to keep the tools clean. When it's cooler weather like this, it's not so bad. Things don't set too quickly, but when it's warmer, things set up quickly. By the time you get done wrapping the prism, you're going to have a bit of a mess to clean up. All right, next we have a tub that is where we're going to place the cement after it's been mixed. And that's where we're going to insert our jute material and basically knead it and work it together. So you have to have some sort of a tub or container that we can pour the cement into and then have or add the jute material to knead it all together. We also need our jute. So this has been pre-measured to 100 inches. So that's ready to go and all set there. Next thing is we have a couple of tools. Well, first off, let's go to safety. When we're doing our mixing, and especially when we're dumping the cementol in or the pure CSA material and mixing any sort of splattering, we want to avoid skin contact and especially in the eyes. This is not as caustic as Portland cement, which oftentimes has a very high pH of say 12 or even more when it's in its liquid phase. But CSA still has a higher pH, 10.5 to 11. Until it's cured, then it basically starts to drop. So we want to have gloves, protect our hands. You can have larger gauntlet ones if you want. It kind of depends on how messy you are. We want to have glasses on to protect our eyes for any sort of splattering situation. And then inevitably, this ends up on your shoes and your clothes. And I usually wear an apron of some sort, as long as it's not too hot, to try to keep my nice Sea Grant gear in prime shape. All right, so next thing we have is a couple of squeegees. These become very helpful. You'll see it's really about recovering some cement and minimizing the loss of materials. We also have some clips here. These are may not be necessary. It kind of depends on the conditions. If it's windy, you're going to want these because inevitably the wind blows just before you need to lay something down, but you'll see how those are used in a moment. And the last couple of pieces are the actual form itself. So we've got inside here, we've got our form. And on top of the form, we have a sheet of plastic. This is, again, just 3 to 6 mil plastic. I recommend a heavier weight. It'll be more durable. So that's slipped over the outside of our form. We also have 2 sheets of plastic that are about 4 feet wide and 5 feet long. And those will go down on the table first before we lay out the CSA impregnated jute. And then lastly, we have a piece of plywood. This is actually very thin, 1/8 inch ply, could be 1/4 inch or so. Doesn't have to be very thick, doesn't have to be very strong, but it's something that we're going to use to help initially rotate the CSA material around the form. The dimensions are the same as what would be the bottom of whatever form you're making. So for instance, you can see this is the same width. In this case, it's 14 inches. And then the same length. And so you'll see how this is used in a little bit. All right, so those are all the materials. Next thing, we're going to build ourselves a reef prism.